Trembling with rage, Jamal Harris watched as the airline executives squirmed in their seats. His viral video had reached 60 million views overnight. The same flight attendant who dragged him from first class now begged for mercy. Funny, Jamal thought, how quickly power shifts when justice arrives. Before I dive into this shocking story, where are you watching from today? Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever witnessed injustice and wondered how to fight back. Because what happened next in Jamal's story will show you exactly how one man's courage transformed an entire industry. Jamal Harris had never expected life to be easy. Growing up in one of Baltimore's toughest neighborhoods, he'd learned early that nothing would be handed to him. His mother worked 2 jobs, and by 14, Jamal was already stocking shelves after school to help keep food on the table. Despite the exhaustion, he maintained perfect grades, fueled by a dream bigger than his circumstances. Education is your ticket out, his father would say before his shift at the factory. Those words became Jamal's mantra through 4 years of working multiple jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA at State College, through the nights coding until his eyes burned, through every door slammed in his face when seeking funding for his tech startup. At 38, Jamal had built Tech Fusion from a concept sketched on napkins in his studio apartment into a powerhouse valued at over $2 billion. His data security systems protected some of the biggest companies in America. The journey had been brutal, marked by investors who couldn't quite see the vision when facing a black entrepreneur, partners who mysteriously backed out after meeting him in person, and competitors who openly questioned his credentials despite his double major from MIT. But today, none of that mattered. After 18 months of negotiations, Jamal had finally closed a $400 million deal with a consortium of international investors. The contract, signed just yesterday, would expand Tech Fusion's reach to 27 countries. It was the culmination of everything he'd fought for since that first line of code. "You deserve to celebrate, boss," Devon, his executive assistant, had insisted. "For once, treat yourself." Jamal had laughed. Treating himself wasn't in his nature. He typically flew economy, stayed in moderate hotels, and drove the same sensible sedan he'd bought 5 years ago. But Devon was right. This victory deserved acknowledgement. So he'd done it. Booked first class on Coastal Airways to San Francisco, where he would deliver the keynote at the National Tech Security Conference. For once, he wouldn't arrive exhausted and cramped. He'd step off the plane refreshed, ready to inspire the next generation of tech entrepreneurs. The confirmation email had given him a small thrill. Seat 2A. Premium champagne service. Priority boarding. A moment of luxury earned through years of sacrifice. Atlanta International Airport bustled with activity as Jamal arrived 3 hours early, his charcoal Armani suit crisp, his Oxfords polished to a mirror shine. His mother would have approved of his appearance. "If they're going to judge you before you speak," she always said, "make sure they judge you proper." At the premium check-in counter, the attendant's smile seemed genuine as she processed his boarding pass. "Congratulations on choosing our first-class service, Mr. Harris. We're delighted to have you aboard today." The brief moment of respect felt good, but it didn't last. At security, despite his pre-check status, a TSA agent pulled him aside. "Random check, sir." The agent's tone made it clear there was nothing random about it. Jamal maintained his composure as they rifled through his immaculate carry-on, inspected his laptop, and ran additional screening wands across his body. The white executives ahead and behind him passed through without a second glance. Just another day in America, Jamal thought as he reassembled his belongings. He navigated toward the first-class lounge, boarding pass ready when the attendant at the entrance frowned slightly. "First class to San Francisco," he said, before she could question him. He'd learned to preemptively answer the unasked question, "What are you doing here?" Inside the lounge, he settled into a quiet corner with sparkling water and his tablet, reviewing his presentation one last time. A movement caught his eye as an elderly black man in a janitor's uniform carefully wiped down nearby tables. "Mr. Harris?" The janitor's voice was tentative. I thought that was you. Saw your picture in Black Enterprise last month. My grandson can't stop talking about your company. Jamal immediately stood and extended his hand. Thank you for saying hello. What's your grandson into? The man's face lit up. Coding since he was 12. Got a scholarship to Georgia Tech. They chatted for 15 minutes, Jamal providing his email address and promising to connect the young man with TechFusion's internship program. As the janitor returned to work with renewed energy, Jamal felt a familiar bittersweet pang. How many brilliant minds never got their shot because of where they started? As boarding time approached, Jamal gathered his things, reflecting on how far he'd come. From the boy who couldn't afford new sneakers to the man who now employed over 500 people. His parents hadn't lived to see his success, but he felt their pride in every achievement. The first-class lounge announcement came over the speakers. Coastal Airways Flight 1382 to San Francisco is now boarding at Gate A7. First class and priority passengers may board at this time. Jamal took a deep breath. Time to enjoy the fruits of his labor. Jamal approached the priority boarding lane with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged. He'd earned this moment, paid for it with years of 18-hour workdays and sacrifices invisible to everyone around him. The gate agent scanned his boarding pass with a cursory nod, and Jamal stepped onto the jet bridge. At the aircraft door, flight attendant Stephanie Wilson's welcoming smile froze slightly when she saw him. Her eyes darted to his boarding pass, then back to his face. Good afternoon, sir. May I verify your boarding pass again? Jamal maintained his pleasant expression as he presented it once more. He was used to this, the double checks, the subtle implications that he might be in the wrong place. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Her tone remained skeptical as she returned the pass. Seat 2A is in the first row on your right. The first-class cabin gleamed with luxury, wide leather seats, real glassware already set out for the pre-departure champagne service, personal entertainment systems with larger screens than in economy. Jamal found 2A, a window seat with extra legroom, and settled in. He stowed his laptop bag neatly in the compartment above and arranged his tablet and phone on the side table. A flight attendant different from the one at the door approached. Can I take your jacket, sir? This was the service he'd paid for. Jamal handed over his suit jacket, watching as she hung it carefully in the first-class closet. Several other passengers in business attire boarded, receiving similar treatment. No additional pass checks for them, he noticed. The boarding continued smoothly until a commotion at the front caught everyone's attention. Bradley Thompson, a red-faced white man in his 50s wearing an expensive but rumpled suit, was arriving visibly flustered. Sorry, conference call ran long, he announced to no one in particular, as if the entire aircraft had been waiting specifically for him. The flight attendants reassured him with sympathetic smiles that he was fine, still within the boarding window. Thompson made his way down the aisle, checking seat numbers, then stopped abruptly beside Jamal's row. He looked at the seat, then at his boarding pass, then directly at Jamal with undisguised annoyance. I believe you're in my seat, Thompson said loudly. Jamal glanced at his own boarding pass. 2A. No, this is definitely my assigned seat. Thompson thrust his boarding pass forward. Look, I always book 2A. There must be some mistake. Jamal calmly took out his phone, opened his confirmation email. I booked this specific seat 3 weeks ago. I have the confirmation right here. By now, lead flight attendant Amanda Pearson had approached. She was tall, blonde, and wearing the gold wings that designated her senior status. Without even looking at Jamal's documentation, she turned to Thompson with immediate sympathy. I'm so sorry for the confusion, Mr. Thompson. Let me check what's happened here. She took both boarding passes, but her eyes lingered on Thompson's. It appears there's been a duplicate assignment. Let me check the system. Jamal remained calm. I specifically selected this seat when booking. I have the confirmation email showing seat 2A was assigned to me on April 12th. Amanda barely glanced at his phone screen. Yes, well, sometimes the system makes errors. Mr. Thompson is one of our Platinum Elite members. I understand, Jamal said, his voice level. But I paid for this specific seat, and I have the documentation proving it was assigned to me weeks ago. Thompson's face was growing redder. Look, I don't have time for this. I've been flying this route every month for 5 years, and I always sit in 2A. Always. Other passengers were watching now. The atmosphere in the first-class cabin had grown tense. Jamal could feel their stares, some curious, some judgmental. Stephanie had returned and was whispering with Amanda. Both occasionally glanced at Jamal with expressions that ranged from suspicion to outright hostility. Perhaps there's another first-class seat available. Jamal suggested reasonably. Amanda shook her head. First class is fully booked today. Thompson crossed his arms. I'm not moving to another seat. I specifically need this one for my back condition. This was the first mention of any medical necessity. Jamal noticed a few other flight attendants gathering, forming a huddle near the galley. They whispered among themselves, throwing occasional glances his way. The situation was escalating, and he hadn't raised his voice once. I understand, Mr. Thompson is a frequent flyer, Jamal said, but I booked and paid for this specific seat. I'm also on my way to deliver a keynote address at the National Tech Security Conference, and I need to arrive rested. I don't see how that's relevant, Amanda said dismissively. We have a seating conflict that needs resolution. What she really meant, Jamal knew, was that his comfort and preparation were not considered relevant. Thompson's needs, stated or invented on the spot, took automatic precedence. I don't mean to cause any trouble, Jamal said, though he knew that in the eyes of some, his very presence constituted trouble, but I'm not comfortable giving up the seat I specifically selected and paid for. Thompson scoffed. People like you always make everything so difficult. Just move to another seat so we can take off. The people like you hung in the air, its meaning unmistakable. A few seats behind them, a woman spoke up. Excuse me, but if he has the boarding pass for that seat, shouldn't he be allowed to stay in it? Lisa Chen, an Asian American woman in her 30s, looked between the flight attendants expectantly. This doesn't concern you, ma'am, Amanda replied curtly. We're handling a seating issue. Seems like you're handling it by ignoring his valid boarding pass, came another voice. This time it was a black man in a navy suit, Marcus Washington, according to the name he'd mention later in his witness statement. I've been watching this whole interaction, and I have to say, it doesn't look right. The cabin grew even more tense. Lines were being drawn. Amanda's face hardened as she realized she was losing control of the narrative. If everyone could please remain in their assigned seats, we'll sort this out, she announced loudly, though the irony of asking everyone to remain in assigned seats while attempting to remove Jamal from his was apparently lost on her. Jamal sat perfectly still, his mind racing. He'd faced this type of situation before, different context, same underlying bias. He knew that any display of frustration, any raised voice, any visible anger would be used against him. He needed to remain composed while standing his ground. The confrontation had only just begun. The standoff in the first-class cabin had drawn the attention of nearly everyone on the plane. Passengers waiting to board in economy were backing up on the jet bridge as the scene unfolded. Amanda Pearson had stepped away briefly, presumably to consult with other crew members, while Bradley Thompson remained standing in the aisle, arms crossed, glaring at Jamal as though his very presence was an affront. Through the tension, a new figure emerged from the cockpit. Captain Kevin Richards, distinguished by his 4 gold stripes and authoritative bearing, surveyed the situation with a frown. What seems to be the problem here? His deep voice carried natural authority. Before Jamal could explain, Thompson jumped in. This man is refusing to vacate my seat, Captain. I've been delayed already, and now this situation is holding up the entire flight. Captain Richards turned to Jamal with an expression that had already formed judgment. "Sir, we need to resolve this quickly. We have a schedule to maintain." "I understand that, Captain," Jamal replied evenly. "I have a confirmed reservation for seat 2A. I selected it specifically when booking 3 weeks ago, and I have the documentation here." He again displayed his boarding pass and email confirmation. The captain barely glanced at it. "Amanda, what does the system show?" While they conferred, Jamal discreetly reached for his phone. Without drawing attention, he opened the video recording app and positioned the phone partially obscured by his leg, but with the camera capturing the scene. If this continued as he suspected it might, he wanted evidence. Amanda was showing the captain something on her tablet. "It appears there's been a duplicate assignment. Mr. Thompson is a Platinum Elite member with specific seating needs." "I see," the captain nodded, as though this explained everything. He turned back to Jamal. "Sir, it appears there's been a system error. We'll need you to take an alternative seat to resolve this matter." "What alternative seat?" Jamal asked. "I was just told first class is fully booked." "We can accommodate you in our economy comfort section," Amanda suggested with false helpfulness. Jamal remained calm but firm. "I paid for first class, specifically for seat 2A. If there's been a system error, that's not my responsibility. My reservation was confirmed weeks ago." Thompson scoffed loudly. "Some people just don't know their place, do they, Captain? I have connections on this airline's board. I can't believe we're still discussing this." The coded language wasn't subtle. Jamal continued recording, ensuring the audio picked up Thompson's remarks. "Sir," Captain Richards addressed Jamal with thinning patience, "we're trying to be reasonable here. Mr. Thompson is a long-standing customer with specific needs." "What specific needs require this exact seat?" Jamal inquired. "I have needs too. I'm presenting at a major conference tomorrow. That's why I specifically booked first class and this particular seat." Lisa Chen spoke up again from her seat. "Excuse me, Captain, but isn't this a simple matter of who booked the seat first? If this gentleman has documentation showing he reserved it 3 weeks ago." "Ma'am, please stay out of this," the captain cut her off. "Airline seating is more complicated than that." "Is it?" Marcus Washington interjected. "Or is something else happening here? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're ignoring this man's valid reservation for no justifiable reason." The captain's face darkened. "Sir, please don't make accusations. We're following standard protocol for resolving seating conflicts." "What protocol prioritizes one passenger over another when both have valid tickets?" Jamal asked. "Is there something specific about Mr. Thompson that makes his claim to this seat superior to mine, despite my earlier reservation?" The implied question hung in the air. Several passengers shifted uncomfortably. Amanda stepped forward. "Mr. Harris, you're becoming disruptive. If you can't accept our resolution, we may need to take further steps." "Disruptive?" Jamal repeated calmly. "I haven't raised my voice. I've simply asked why my confirmed reservation is being invalidated in favor of another passenger who arrived later." Thompson jumped in again. "This is ridiculous. I'm going to miss my connection if this continues. Just remove him so we can take off." Captain Richards made a decision. "Mr. Harris, I'm going to have to ask you to either accept the alternative seating or deplane. You're delaying an entire aircraft full of passengers." "I'm delaying the aircraft?" Jamal kept his voice even. "I was seated and ready. Mr. Thompson is the one who created this situation by claiming a seat that wasn't assigned to him." "That's it," Amanda declared. "I'm calling security." Jamal's heart pounded, but he maintained his composure. "On what grounds?" "I have a valid ticket for this seat. I've been calm and reasonable throughout this entire interaction. "You're refusing direct instructions from the flight crew," the captain stated. "That's grounds for removal under FAA regulations." "I'm refusing to give up the seat I paid for without any valid explanation," Jamal corrected. "That's not the same thing." Amanda had already picked up the cabin phone. "Security to the main cabin door, disruptive passenger in first class." Murmurs rippled through the cabin. Some passengers looked uncomfortable with how the situation was unfolding. Others seemed to side with the crew, throwing annoyed glances at Jamal as though he was willfully causing a scene. "This is completely unacceptable," Lisa Chen stated loudly. "I'm recording this too." She held up her phone openly. "Photography is not permitted on this aircraft," Amanda snapped. "Funny how that rule only gets enforced now," Marcus Washington observed. "People have been taking selfies since boarding began." Thompson leaned toward Jamal, speaking just loudly enough to be heard. "You should have known better than to make trouble. People like you always think you belong where you don't." Jamal's phone continued recording. Every word, every interaction was being captured. The situation had escalated beyond a simple seating dispute. It had become something much uglier, much more familiar. Through the windows, Jamal could see security personnel approaching on the jet bridge. His mind raced through options. He could continue to resist and likely be forcibly removed, possibly even arrested on trumped-up charges. Or he could leave, voluntarily, and fight this battle on different terrain. Years of navigating hostile spaces had taught him when to stand firm and when strategic retreat was the wiser choice. This wasn't surrender, it was choosing the battlefield. As security entered the aircraft, Jamal made his decision. This wouldn't be the end of the story. It would be just the beginning. The aircraft cabin fell into a tense silence as 3 airport security officers boarded. They were directed immediately to Jamal's seat, where Captain Richards and Amanda Pearson stood waiting with expressions of vindication. "This is the passenger," Amanda stated, pointing directly at Jamal. "He's refusing crew instructions and disrupting the boarding process." The lead security officer, a stocky man with a buzz cut, looked between Jamal and the crew. "Sir, we've been informed there's a problem. Can you come with us, please?" Jamal's phone continued recording discreetly. "Officer, I have a valid first-class ticket for this specific seat. I've been calm and cooperative. I'm simply asking why my confirmed reservation is being invalidated without explanation." The security officer glanced at Captain Richards, who shook his head slightly. "Sir, we're not here to adjudicate airline seating policies. If the captain has determined you need to deplane, you must comply." Jamal realized the decision had been made long before security arrived. This was merely theater, a show of authority to intimidate him into compliance and to justify what was about to happen. "May I see your ticket, sir?" the security officer asked, more as a formality than genuine inquiry. Jamal handed over his boarding pass and pulled up the confirmation email on his phone. The officer gave them a cursory glance before returning them. "I understand you believe you have a valid claim to this seat," he said in a tone that suggested he was just following protocol. "But at this point, you need to follow crew instructions and deplane. You can sort this out with customer service afterward." Bradley Thompson had taken a step back, a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. He was enjoying this, the spectacle of power being exercised to put someone in their place. "Am I understanding correctly," Jamal asked clearly, ensuring his phone captured every word, "that I'm being removed from a flight despite having a valid, confirmed ticket for the exact seat I'm occupying?" "You're being removed for failing to comply with crew instructions," Captain Richards stated firmly. "The seating issue is secondary. What specific instruction have I failed to comply with? Being told to give up the seat I paid for without explanation?" "Sir," the security officer cut in, "this isn't the place for this discussion. Please gather your belongings and come with us now." Jamal could feel dozens of eyes on him. Some passengers looked away, uncomfortable with witnessing the injustice unfolding but unwilling to intervene. Others watched with open curiosity, as though this were entertainment rather than humiliation. With deliberate calm, Jamal stood and collected his tablet and phone, still recording. "I want everyone to understand what's happening here. I am a paying customer being removed from my confirmed seat without cause or explanation. I have been respectful and calm throughout this interaction. Just get your stuff and go," Thompson muttered. "Some people can't understand when they're not wanted." As Jamal reached for his laptop bag in the overhead compartment, he could see Lisa Chen shaking her head in disgust. Marcus Washington had stood up, business card extended. "Take my information," Washington said. "I'll be a witness to what happened here today. This isn't right." Amanda quickly stepped between them. "Sir, please remain seated. The aircraft is preparing for departure." Jamal memorized Washington's name and company from the card he couldn't quite reach. He'd find him later. With security flanking him, Jamal began the long walk of shame down the aisle. First through the first-class cabin, where mixed expressions of discomfort and judgment followed him. Then through premium economy, where more passengers had become aware of the situation. Finally through the main cabin, a gauntlet of stares and whispers. "That's the guy holding us up," someone muttered. "What did he do?" asked another. A small voice, a child, asked loudly, "Mommy, why are those men taking that man away?" The innocent question hung in the air, unanswered. At the aircraft door, Jamal turned to the lead security officer. "I want your name and badge number, please. This will be part of a formal complaint." The officer hesitated, then provided the information, which Jamal committed to memory. He stepped off the plane onto the jet bridge, the door closing firmly behind him. Through the small window, he could see Thompson settling comfortably into seat 2A, his seat, with a self-satisfied expression as a flight attendant rushed to offer him champagne. At the gate, Jamal was left standing with his belongings, no alternate flight arrangements, no compensation offered. The gate agent avoided eye contact. "Sir, the flight is preparing for departure. You'll need to clear the gate area." "I need to speak with a manager about rebooking," Jamal stated. "You can try customer service down on the main concourse," the agent replied dismissively. "We're busy with the departure." Jamal stood his ground. "I was just removed from a flight without cause. I paid for a first-class ticket to San Francisco. I need to speak with a manager now." The agent sighed dramatically. "Sir, if you become difficult here, I'll have to call security again." The threat hung in the air. A reminder of how quickly authority could be weaponized against him. Jamal stepped back, pulling out his phone. "Devin," he said when his assistant answered, "I need your help. They just kicked me off the flight." As he explained the situation, Jamal watched through the window as Flight 1382 pushed back from the gate, carrying Bradley Thompson in his seat to San Francisco. What would you do if you were in Jamal's position? Comment number 1 if you believe he should immediately seek legal action against the airline, or comment number 2 if you think he should focus on making it to his conference first and deal with the injustice later. Hit that like button if you've ever witnessed discrimination and felt powerless to stop it, and subscribe to see how Jamal transforms this humiliation into one of the most powerful moments of his career. But first, let me ask you, what do you think happens when a man who built a billion-dollar company from nothing decides he's finally had enough? Jamal Harris had built his success on converting obstacles into opportunities. As he sat in the back of a town car headed toward the private aviation terminal at Atlanta International, he was already reformulating this humiliation into action. "I've chartered a Citation X," Devin informed him over the phone. "It'll be ready in 45 minutes. You'll actually arrive in San Francisco earlier than you would have on Coastal Airways." "Thank you," Jamal replied, his mind already moving to the next steps. "Contact our legal team. Tell them I'll need a call as soon as I'm in the air." The private terminal experience contrasted sharply with his treatment just an hour earlier. Here, staff were attentive and respectful, addressing him as Mr. Harris with genuine deference. No one questioned his presence or asked to verify his credentials multiple times. The captain of the private jet greeted him personally, helped with his bags, and offered refreshments. Once airborne, Jamal reviewed the footage he'd captured. The video quality was better than he'd expected, clearly showing Thompson's sneering face, Amanda's immediate dismissal of his valid documentation, and Captain Richard's refusal to even properly examine his boarding pass. The audio had captured Thompson's coded language about people like you, and knowing their place. Watching it, Jamal felt a cold anger solidify into resolve. This wasn't just about a seat on a plane. This was about something far more insidious that followed Black Americans regardless of their achievements or status. His legal team connected through the jet's secure line. Sarah Goldstein, TechFusion's chief counsel, had already been briefed by Devon. "This is textbook discrimination, Jamal," she said after viewing the footage he'd forwarded. "We can file both with the Department of Transportation and pursue civil action for discriminatory treatment, public humiliation, and breach of contract." "I want to be strategic," Jamal replied. "This isn't just about me or compensation. This needs to drive systemic change." "Then we need to make it public," Sarah advised. "With your permission, I suggest we prepare this footage for release, along with a statement. Your status in the tech community will ensure it gets attention." Jamal considered this. His default throughout his career had been to handle racism privately, to push through barriers without drawing attention to them. It was exhausting but familiar, the constant calculation of when to speak up and when to conserve energy for battles that mattered more. But something had shifted in that aircraft cabin. Maybe it was the smirk on Thompson's face as security led Jamal away. Maybe it was the captain's refusal to even consider that a black man might legitimately belong in first class. Or maybe it was simply that after decades of accommodating others' prejudice, Jamal had reached his limit. "Do it," he decided. "But first, let me prepare a statement that frames this properly." As the private jet cruised at 41,000 feet, Jamal drafted a message to accompany the video. He wanted it to be measured but unflinching, not just a complaint about personal mistreatment but a spotlight on patterns that affected countless others without his resources or platform. "I'm sharing this experience not seeking sympathy," he wrote, "but to illuminate what happens daily to people who look like me, regardless of our achievements or contributions. Today it was a seat on a plane. Tomorrow it might be a job, a home, or a life. #FlyingWhileBlack." He attached the edited video, showing the most damning moments of the interaction, and sent it to Sarah for legal review before posting. While waiting, Jamal's mind drifted to earlier experiences, the venture capitalist who had insisted on speaking only to Jamal's white deputy during a pitch meeting, despite Jamal being the CEO and founder. The real estate agent who had shown him only properties in urban-friendly neighborhoods, when he was looking for a home near his company's headquarters. The countless times he'd been mistaken for support staff at his own corporate events. Each incident had been a pebble in his shoe, irritating but insufficient to stop his journey. He'd developed calluses to protect against the constant friction. But today's humiliation had broken the skin. And perhaps that was necessary. Devon texted an update, the video had passed legal review. It was time. With a deep breath, Jamal posted the footage and his statement to his personal accounts across multiple platforms. As the founder of a major tech company with hundreds of thousands of followers, he knew it would receive attention. But even he wasn't prepared for what happened next. Within minutes, notifications began flooding his phone. Shares, comments, retweets, the video was spreading exponentially. By the time the Citation X began its descent into San Francisco International Airport, #JusticeForJamal was trending nationally. Media requests poured in through TechFusion's PR team. Major networks, tech publications, newspapers, all wanting statements, interviews, exclusive rights to tell his story. Devon had to establish a triage system just to categorize the inquiries. As Jamal deplaned at the private aviation terminal in San Francisco, his phone buzzed with a news alert. Coastal Airways stock had dropped 8% in after-hours trading as the video went viral. Investors were reacting to what they correctly identified as a potential PR catastrophe. A car was waiting to take him to his hotel. Inside, Devon had arranged for a temporary command center where Jamal could prepare for tomorrow's keynote while monitoring the situation. But as they drove toward San Francisco's skyline, Jamal made a decision. Change of plans, he told his driver. Take me directly to the convention center. I need to modify my keynote. The National Tech Security Conference was the industry's premier event. Jamal had originally planned to discuss TechFusion's innovations in quantum encryption, technical material for a technical audience. But now he had a different message to deliver. In his hotel suite that evening, Jamal worked late into the night, restructuring his presentation while updates on the video's spread continued to arrive. Coastal Airways had issued a brief statement claiming they were investigating the incident and take all allegations of discrimination seriously, corporate speak for damage control. Thompson's identity had been quickly discovered by internet sleuths, a mid-level executive at a financial services firm with connections to Coastal's regional director. The pieces were beginning to fit together. By morning, Jamal's video had exceeded 60 million views. As he dressed for his keynote in a fresh suit, he received a call from an unknown number. Mr. Harris? This is Lisa Chen. We met yesterday on the Coastal Airways flight. I've been trying to reach you to offer my testimony about what happened. It was the beginning of a counterattack that would reshape not just one airline, but an entire industry's approach to equality. And Jamal Harris was just getting started. The convention center auditorium was packed beyond capacity for Jamal's keynote. What would normally have been an audience of tech professionals had swelled to include media representatives, industry leaders, and curious onlookers drawn by the viral video that had now reached over 70 million views. Jamal stood backstage, reviewing his revised presentation one last time. He had scrapped the technical talk entirely. Today, he would address something far more fundamental than data encryption. The conference organizer approached nervously. The room's at 300% capacity, Jamal. We've opened overflow rooms with video feeds, and there's still a line. Are you sure you want to go through with changing your topic? The technical presentation was what people registered for. Jamal smiled slightly. Sometimes we need to address the human vulnerabilities before the technical ones. Trust me. As he walked onto the stage, the audience erupted into applause, not just polite conference applause, but thunderous support. Many rose to their feet. The message was clear: we saw what happened, and we stand with you. Jamal adjusted the microphone. I was scheduled to speak about quantum encryption and the future of data security. We'll get to that another time. He paused. Today, I want to talk about a different kind of security, the security of knowing you'll be treated with dignity regardless of your appearance. For the next 45 minutes, Jamal delivered a masterclass in turning personal pain into public purpose. He connected his experience on the aircraft to broader patterns of discrimination in the tech industry and beyond. He challenged the audience to examine their own workplaces and practices. He outlined concrete steps companies could take to ensure equity wasn't just a buzzword but a lived reality. Not once did he raise his voice. Not once did he express rage or demand sympathy. He was measured, articulate, and devastatingly precise in his analysis of how bias operates in seemingly small moments that compound into systemic barriers. The standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. As Jamal left the stage, his phone buzzed with a message from Devon: check your email now. You need to see this. In a quiet corner away from the crowd, Jamal opened the attachment Devon had forwarded. It was an email chain that had been leaked by someone inside Coastal Airways, sent to TechFusion's anonymous ethics reporting system. The first email, dated 2 days before Jamal's flight, was from Patricia Wilson, Coastal's Customer Relations Director, to Amanda Pearson and several other crew members assigned to Flight 1382. Be advised, VIP passenger Bradley Thompson, brother-in-law of Regional Director James Parker, has requested his usual 2A seat. System shows seat currently assigned to A.J. Harris. Kindly ensure Mr. Thompson's preferences are accommodated as always. Handle any resulting issues with discretion. Amanda had replied, noted. We'll take care of it. Is J. Harris a frequent flyer we should know about? The response from Patricia, checked profile. First time in first class. Probably using points or got lucky with an upgrade. Not a priority. Another crew member had chimed in, just Googled. Some tech guy. Picture attached. FYI if you need to identify. Amanda's final reply sent a chill down Jamal's spine, got it. We'll make sure he's comfortable in economy if he gives us any trouble about the seat. These ones always think buying a ticket entitles them to special treatment. The evidence was unambiguous. This hadn't been a mix-up or system error. It had been a deliberate, premeditated plan to displace him for a white passenger with connections, complete with racial coding in the communications. Jamal forwarded the emails to Sarah Goldstein with a single question: how does this change our strategy? Her response came within minutes: it transforms this from a case of possible discrimination to documented, premeditated discriminatory action with written evidence. We can now pursue punitive damages and possibly criminal charges for civil rights violations. This is explosive, Jamal. As he navigated through conference attendees seeking to connect with him, Jamal's phone continued to buzz with developments. Devin had created a special text thread to keep him updated on breaking news related to the incident. Investigative reporter at SF Chronicle found Thompson is brother-in-law of Coastal Regional Director. Story dropping in 30 minutes. Lisa Chen gave interview to CNN. Video testimony confirms everything. Marcus Washington joined her. Internal whistleblower at Coastal has come forward with evidence of similar incidents against minority passengers. Says it's standard practice for connected whites to get priority. By midday, Coastal Airways CEO Jeffrey Williams had issued a statement that only made matters worse. While we regret any misunderstanding that may have occurred on Flight 1382, Coastal Airways categorically denies any discriminatory intent or policy. Occasional seating conflicts are an unfortunate reality in air travel, and our crew members must make real-time decisions to resolve them. We value all our customers and are committed to providing excellent service regardless of background. The dismissive tone and failure to acknowledge the documented evidence triggered fresh outrage across social media. Hashtag Boycott Coastal began trending alongside hashtag Justice for Jamal. During a break between conference sessions, Jamal received a call from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Harris, this is Kimberly Brooks with the National Civil Rights Legal Defense Fund. I've been watching your situation unfold, and I'd like to offer our organization services pro bono. What Coastal Airways did to you reflects patterns we've documented across the transportation industry. Jamal listened as Brooks outlined how his case could serve as a catalyst for broader industry reform. This isn't just about one seat on one flight, she explained. This is about establishing that companies cannot maintain two-tiered systems where some customers are treated as legitimate and others are presumed not to belong. As the day progressed, more evidence emerged. A flight attendant who had witnessed the incident but hadn't been directly involved came forward anonymously, confirming that Coastal had an unwritten policy of accommodating certain passengers at the expense of others, with racial bias frequently influencing these decisions. Journalists uncovered that Bradley Thompson had been involved in 2 previous incidents where black passengers were removed or downgraded from seats near him after he complained. In both cases, Coastal had quietly settled with minimal compensation and strict confidentiality clauses. By evening, when Jamal attended the conference's networking reception, industry leaders were approaching him not just to discuss technology but to offer support and share their own experiences with discrimination. Several major tech companies announced they were suspending their corporate contracts with Coastal Airways pending resolution of the matter. The tide had turned completely. What had begun as one man being humiliated on an aircraft had evolved into a national conversation about privilege, accountability, and corporate responsibility. Late that night, as Jamal returned to his hotel room, he received one more call, this one from his father's old friend, Congressman James Wilson. Jamal, I've been watching what's happening. The Transportation Committee is calling for hearings on discrimination in the airline industry. We want you to testify. The stage was set for what would become a watershed moment in corporate accountability for racial bias. What had happened on Flight 1382 would have consequences far beyond one airline or one passenger. And it all began because Jamal Harris had decided that this time, he wouldn't quietly accept injustice as the price of moving through the world in a black body. Dawn broke over San Francisco as Jamal reviewed the morning's headlines over coffee in his hotel suite. The story had escalated beyond anything he could have anticipated 48 hours earlier. Coastal Airways faces boycott as discriminatory emails leak, Wall Street Journal. Major partners suspend contracts with Coastal following Harris incident, Bloomberg. Airline discrimination, the Harris case exposes industry-wide problem, Washington Post. Devon arrived with updates from overnight developments. 3 of Coastal's largest corporate clients, Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, and Salesforce, have suspended their travel contracts pending resolution. Their stock is down 17% since market open. The board has called an emergency meeting for noon Eastern Time. Jamal nodded, taking it all in. And Thompson? His company, Meridian Financial, placed him on administrative leave last night after their social media accounts were flooded with demands for action. Turns out he has a history of complaints from black colleagues that were buried by HR. The ripple effects were spreading beyond just Coastal Airways. Companies connected to the incident were facing scrutiny about their own practices and accountability systems. Jamal's phone rang, Sarah Goldstein with another update. Coastal's attorneys reached out an hour ago. They're offering a settlement package, $5 million, public apology, commitment to diversity training, and revised seating policies. What's the catch? Jamal asked. Strict confidentiality. No further public statements from you. No testimony before any governmental body. They want this buried quickly. Jamal didn't hesitate. Reject it. This isn't about money. Tell them I'll consider a settlement that includes structural changes, transparent reporting on discrimination complaints, and no confidentiality clauses. I want this on public record. Sarah wasn't surprised. I expected you'd say that. I'll convey your terms. As the day progressed, the corporate fallout intensified. Coastal's damage control efforts were failing spectacularly. Flight attendant Amanda Pearson had been selected to give an interview to a friendly business network, attempting to explain her actions on the aircraft. Devon pulled up the clip on a tablet. You need to see this train wreck. On screen, Amanda sat stiffly in the studio, clearly coached but unprepared for the interviewer's unexpectedly direct questions. Ms. Pearson, emails show you were instructed to remove Mr. Harris from his rightful seat before he ever boarded. How do you reconcile that with your claim that he was removed for being disruptive? Amanda shifted uncomfortably. Our priority is always passenger safety and comfort. Sometimes difficult decisions must be made in the moment. But this wasn't in the moment, was it? The decision to discriminate against Mr. Harris was made 2 days before the flight. I wouldn't characterize it as discrimination, Amanda protested. Mr. Thompson is a valued customer with specific needs. What specific needs required seat 2A? Medical documentation shows no such requirements in his passenger profile. Amanda's facade cracked visibly. Look, we accommodate our frequent flyers. That's standard industry practice. Even when it means violating the rights of other paying customers. Specifically black customers. The interview devolved from there, with Amanda eventually claiming she was being attacked for following company protocols, inadvertently confirming that the discriminatory treatment had indeed been standard procedure rather than an isolated incident. By midday, Coastal announced that Captain Kevin Richards had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The company was attempting to contain the damage by sacrificing individual employees while protecting the system that had enabled their actions. Meanwhile, Jamal's inbox was filling with messages of support and opportunity. TechFusion's profile had risen dramatically, with partnership offers flooding in from companies eager to demonstrate their commitment to diversity and ethical business practices. Stanford Business School wants you to give a guest lecture on ethical leadership, Devin reported, scrolling through invitations. The Black Entrepreneurs Association wants to present you with their Courage in Leadership Award. And Oprah's people called. Twice. Jamal took a moment to reflect on the unexpected trajectory of events. He hadn't sought this platform, but now that he had it, he intended to use it purposefully. A text notification interrupted his thoughts, a message from his childhood friend Michael, now a high school teacher in Baltimore, showing my students your video today. Powerful lesson on standing up with dignity. Dad would be proud. The mention of his father brought a rush of emotion. William Harris had worked 30 years at a factory where he was repeatedly passed over for promotions given to less qualified white colleagues. He'd taught Jamal to fight injustice without losing himself to bitterness, a delicate balance that had guided Jamal's response to this situation. Late afternoon brought news of Coastal Airways Emergency Board meeting results. CEO Jeffrey Williams had been unanimously voted out, along with 3 senior executives including Patricia Wilson, who had initiated the email chain about displacing Jamal. They're cleaning house, Devin observed. They're sacrificing figureheads while hoping to preserve the system, Jamal corrected. We need to keep pressing for structural changes, not just personnel changes. As evening approached, Jamal received an unexpected call, Bradley Thompson himself, sounding far less confident than he had on the aircraft. Mr. Harris, I'm calling to apologize for my behavior on the flight. I've been terminated from Meridian Financial, my wife is talking about separation, and I'm receiving death threats. I hope we can resolve this situation privately. Jamal listened without interrupting. Thompson wasn't apologizing because he recognized his actions were wrong, he was apologizing because he was facing consequences. Mr. Thompson, Jamal finally replied, I appreciate your call, but this isn't a private matter to be resolved between us. Your actions reflected systemic problems that have affected countless others without my resources or platform. I suggest you use this experience to reflect on the privilege you've enjoyed and often abused. Good evening. He ended the call, turning to Devin. No more direct communications from Thompson. Everything through legal channels from now on. As night fell on the second day of the tech conference, Jamal addressed a special evening session that had been hastily arranged to accommodate demand. The topic: Ethical Leadership in Times of Crisis. Standing before a packed auditorium, Jamal spoke not about victimhood but about accountability, transformation, and the responsibility that came with influence. He connected his personal experience to the broader struggles for equality that had defined American history. Change doesn't come from comfort, he told the rapt audience. It comes when we refuse to accept injustice as normal, when we insist on dignity not just for ourselves but for everyone. The applause was deafening. In his hotel room that night, Jamal received one final update before turning in. Congressman Wilson had called again. The Transportation Committee hearings on airline discrimination would begin next week. Jamal was scheduled to testify first. What had begun as a humiliating removal from an aircraft was evolving into a moment of national reckoning. And Jamal Harris, who had spent a lifetime carefully navigating systems designed to exclude him, was now positioned to help transform them. His father's words echoed in his mind as he drifted towards sleep, "Stand your ground, son." Not with anger, but with the unshakable conviction that you belong wherever your talents and hard work have earned you a place. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for tonight, Jamal rested in the knowledge that he had done exactly that. The congressional hearing room hummed with anticipation. Camera crews jostled for position, journalists furiously typed opening paragraphs for stories that would dominate the evening news, and spectators filled every available seat. At the center of it all, Jamal Harris sat composed at the witness table, reviewing his prepared testimony one last time. 6 days had passed since his removal from Coastal Airways Flight 1382. 6 days that had transformed a personal humiliation into a national conversation about race, privilege, and corporate accountability. Now, as the Transportation Committee prepared to examine discrimination in the airline industry, Jamal would have the opportunity to shape policy that could protect countless future travelers. Congressman James Wilson, his father's old friend and now chairman of the committee, called the session to order with a sharp rap of his gavel. Today we begin hearings into allegations of discriminatory practices in the commercial airline industry. Our first witness is Mr. Jamal Harris, CEO of Tech Fusion and the subject of a widely publicized incident aboard Coastal Airways last week. Jamal leaned toward the microphone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished committee members. I appear before you today not merely as someone who experienced discrimination, but as a voice for the many who have faced similar treatment without the platform or resources to seek redress. For the next 20 minutes, Jamal detailed his experience with precision and restraint. He presented the video evidence, the leaked emails showing premeditation, and documentation of similar incidents that had emerged since his story went viral. He connected these individual acts to broader patterns of discrimination that persisted across the transportation sector. What happened to me was not an isolated incident or the action of a few bad apples, he explained. It was the predictable result of systems that normalize preferential treatment based on race and connection, while providing no meaningful accountability for those who enact discriminatory policies. The questioning began with Congressman Wilson. Mr. Harris, in your view, what specific legislative or regulatory changes would help prevent such incidents in the future? Jamal had prepared extensively for this moment. 3 critical changes are needed, Congressman. First, mandatory data collection and public reporting on passenger complaints related to discrimination, including demographic information and resolution details. Second, substantial financial penalties for airlines found to engage in discriminatory practices, with funds directed to civil rights education. And third, independent oversight of airline training programs to ensure anti-bias measures are meaningful, not merely performative. As questioning continued from both sides of the aisle, Jamal navigated partisan attempts to either minimize or weaponize his experience with the same thoughtful precision that had built his tech empire. He refused to be drawn into partisan framings, consistently steering the conversation back to specific, actionable remedies. After Jamal's testimony concluded, the committee called forward a panel of airline executives, including Coastal Airways interim CEO Martin Reynolds, who had replaced Jeffrey Williams just days earlier. Reynolds, visibly uncomfortable, began with a prepared statement. Coastal Airways acknowledges the serious failures that occurred on Flight 1382. We are implementing comprehensive changes to ensure such incidents never recur, including revised seating policies, mandatory anti-bias training for all staff, and a new executive position focused exclusively on equity and inclusion. Congressman Wilson was unimpressed. Mr. Reynolds, internal emails revealed that Coastal had an established practice of displacing passengers to accommodate VIPs with connections to management. Was this written policy or merely understood procedure? Reynolds shifted in his seat. Upon review of our practices, it appears certain informal accommodations have become normalized without proper oversight. We are eliminating all such practices effective immediately. The evasion didn't work. Another committee member jumped in. Mr. Reynolds, yes or no, did Coastal Airways maintain a 2-tiered system where connected passengers received preferential treatment at the expense of others, particularly minorities? After painful hesitation, historical evidence suggests such patterns existed. Yes. The admission sent reporters rushing from the room to file updates. The most dramatic moment came when Amanda Pearson was called to testify. Coastal had clearly hoped to make her the scapegoat, but she arrived with her own legal representation and a different agenda. While I accept responsibility for my actions on Flight 1382, she began shakily, I want this committee to understand that we were following established company protocols. We were trained to prioritize certain passengers based on their status and connections, and there was implicit understanding about which passengers were expendable when conflicts arose. A congressman pressed her, Ms. Pearson, Are you stating that racial considerations influenced these determinations of which passengers were expendable? Amanda's composure cracked. We were never explicitly told to discriminate based on race. We were told to use our judgment about which passengers would cause minimum disruption to the coastal experience if displaced. In practice, this meant certain passengers, usually minorities, especially black men, were the first targeted for removal or downgrading. Her testimony corroborated everything Jamal had alleged and more. By the day's end, the committee had announced expanded hearings and subpoenas for internal airline training materials across the industry. Outside the hearing room, Jamal faced a wall of cameras and microphones. Rather than focusing on personal vindication, he emphasized the path forward. Today marks an important step toward accountability, but the real work lies ahead. Transforming systems requires sustained attention and commitment long after the cameras have moved on. I'm establishing the Air Travel Equality Initiative to ensure these issues remain visible and that promised changes are implemented. Back at his Washington hotel that evening, Jamal received updates on developments that had occurred during the hearing. Bradley Thompson had been formally terminated by Meridian Financial after an internal investigation revealed a pattern of discriminatory behavior toward black colleagues and clients. His connection to Coastal's regional director, which had enabled his preferential treatment, had been severed as the director himself resigned under pressure. Captain Kevin Richards, who had supported Amanda's discriminatory actions aboard Flight 1382, had released a statement through his attorney expressing deep regret for his role in the incident, while still maintaining he had merely followed established protocols for handling seating conflicts. Most significantly, the Transportation Secretary had announced a comprehensive investigation into discrimination across the airline industry, using Coastal Airways as a case study in how bias becomes embedded in corporate culture. That night, as Jamal prepared to return to San Francisco to conclude his conference obligations, he received an unexpected message. Former Captain Richards, now stripped of his position and facing professional censure, had requested a private meeting. After careful consideration and consultation with his legal team, Jamal agreed to a brief meeting in a neutral location, with attorneys present. The following morning, in a conference room at Jamal's hotel, Richards entered looking markedly different from the authoritative figure who had ordered Jamal's removal from the aircraft. The former captain appeared haggard, humbled by his sudden fall from privilege. "Mr. Harris," Richards began, his voice unsteady, "I wanted to apologize to you directly. I've lost my career of 27 years, but more importantly, I've been forced to confront ugly truths about myself and the system I participated in." Jamal listened without interrupting as Richards continued. "I never considered myself racist. But watching that video, seeing how quickly I dismissed your valid documentation without even properly examining it, I can't deny the truth. I would never have treated a white passenger that way. That realization it's shaken everything I thought I knew about myself." The confession was painful, raw, and necessary. Jamal recognized the courage it took, even while acknowledging it didn't erase the harm done. "Captain Richards," he finally replied, "I appreciate your willingness to confront these uncomfortable truths. True change begins with that recognition. What matters now is what you do with this awareness moving forward." Richards nodded solemnly. "I've enrolled in anti-bias education. I'm speaking with other pilots about the culture we've normalized. It's not enough, I know, but it's a start." The meeting lasted less than 30 minutes, but it represented something profound, the beginning of genuine accountability that went beyond corporate damage control to touch individual conscience. As Jamal's flight lifted off from Reagan National Airport that afternoon, he reflected on the extraordinary chain of events triggered by one moment of refusing to quietly accept injustice. A multi-billion-dollar corporation had been forced to confront its discriminatory practices. An industry was under investigation. And perhaps most importantly, a conversation had been started that could help protect countless travelers who would never know his name. The work was far from complete. But the arc of accountability had begun to bend toward justice. And Jamal Harris had helped to bend it. 6 months after the incident that transformed his life and sparked a national reckoning, Jamal Harris stood in the gleaming departure terminal of Atlanta International Airport. He was returning to the same gate, the same airline, the same route that had been the site of his humiliation half a year earlier. But everything had changed. Coastal Airways had undergone a complete restructuring after the congressional hearings revealed patterns of discrimination that extended far beyond Jamal's experience. The airline had paid a record settlement to resolve a class action lawsuit brought by hundreds of passengers who came forward with similar stories. More importantly, they had implemented sweeping reforms under new leadership and the watchful eye of federal regulators. As Jamal approached the premium check-in counter, he noticed the difference immediately. The staff was notably diverse, the signage featured passengers of various backgrounds, and a prominently displayed customer bill of rights included specific anti-discrimination provisions. "Good morning, Mr. Harris," the check-in agent greeted him warmly. "It's an honor to have you flying with us today." There was no suspicion in her eyes, no double-checking of his premium status. Just professional courtesy extended to a valued customer. Walking through the terminal toward his gate, Jamal reflected on the extraordinary changes of the past 6 months. The Air Travel Equality Initiative he had founded now employed 27 staff members and had successfully advocated for new federal regulations requiring airlines to track and publicly report demographic data on passenger removals and complaints. His testimony had helped secure bipartisan support for legislation imposing substantial penalties for documented discrimination in commercial transportation. At Tech Fusion, the unexpected spotlight had created new opportunities. The company had launched a division focused on developing compliance software to help corporations identify and address patterns of bias in customer interactions. Major airlines, hotel chains, and retail corporations had signed contracts, recognizing that addressing discrimination wasn't just morally right but financially prudent. Jamal's personal journey had been equally profound. The shy, reserved executive who had preferred working behind the scenes had emerged as a respected voice on corporate responsibility and racial equity. He still felt uncomfortable with the attention at times, but he had embraced the platform fate had thrust upon him. As he approached his gate, a familiar figure caught his eye, an elderly black man in a janitor's uniform carefully cleaning nearby seating areas. "Mr. Williams?" Jamal called out, recognizing the janitor he'd met in the first-class lounge on that fateful day. The man looked up, surprise and delight spreading across his weathered face. "Mr. Harris. I saw what happened to you on the news. My grandson wouldn't stop talking about how you stood up to them." Jamal shook the man's hand warmly. "How is your grandson doing? Did he start at Georgia Tech?" "Yes, sir. Top of his class in computer science." The pride in Mr. Williams' voice was unmistakable. "He's hoping to intern at a company like yours someday." "Actually," Jamal smiled, "I've been meaning to contact you about something. The foundation I established needs an operations director, someone with experience managing complex facilities and understanding people. Someone with wisdom and integrity. Would you be interested in hearing more?" The janitor's eyes widened. "Me? But I don't have any fancy degrees or—" "You have 40 years of work experience and insight into systems most executives never see," Jamal interrupted gently. "My foundation needs that perspective. Here's my card, call me next week if you're interested." As boarding began for Flight 1382 to San Francisco, Jamal noticed another significant change. The crew greeting passengers at the door reflected America's diversity: black, white, Asian, Latino, all wearing new uniform pins that read, "Dignity, Respect, Service." "Welcome aboard, Mr. Harris," the lead flight attendant said. "We're honored to have you with us today. Your seat 2A is ready." As Jamal settled into the same seat from which he'd been removed 6 months earlier, he found a handwritten note on premium stationery. "Mr. Harris. Your courage changed our company and the industry. Thank you for holding us accountable. Sincerely. The new Coastal Airways leadership team." The simple acknowledgement spoke volumes about the transformation his stand had initiated. Just before takeoff, Jamal received an unexpected email, from Amanda Pearson, the former flight attendant who had been at the center of his removal. She had been unemployed since Coastal terminated her, struggling to rebuild her life after becoming the face of the scandal. "Mr. Harris," she wrote, "after months of soul-searching and anti-bias education, I am writing to offer my sincere apology. No excuses, no justifications. What I did was wrong, and it reflected biases I'm still working to overcome. While I can never undo the humiliation I caused you, I want you to know that your dignified response to injustice has transformed my understanding of privilege and responsibility. I am a different person because of you." The message continued, describing Amanda's new role, speaking to flight attendant training programs about her experience and the importance of confronting unconscious bias. She had transformed her disgrace into education. Midway through the flight, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, as we cruise at 37,000 feet, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge a special passenger with us today. Mr. Jamal Harris's courage in standing up to discrimination has made air travel more equitable and respectful for all of us. On behalf of our entire crew, thank you." Spontaneous applause broke out across the cabin. The passenger beside Jamal, a young white woman who hadn't recognized him until that moment, turned with wide eyes. "You're that CEO. My business ethics class studied your case last semester. You changed everything." As the flight began its descent into San Francisco, Jamal gazed out the window at the California coastline shimmering in the distance. He thought about how a single moment of injustice, handled with dignity and strategic purpose, had catalyzed changes that would benefit countless travelers who would never know his name. His father's voice seemed to whisper in his memory, "Stand your ground, son." Not with anger, but with the unshakable conviction that you belong wherever your talents and hard work have earned you a place. When Flight 1382 touched down at San Francisco International, Jamal felt a sense of completion. The journey that had begun in humiliation had transformed into something powerful and enduring, not just for him, but for an entire system that had needed fundamental change. As he deplaned, the diverse flight crew stood in a line, offering quiet nods of respect. The message was clear: this was not just Jamal Harris, the successful CEO, boarding their aircraft, but a man whose principled stand had helped transform their workplace and industry. Outside the secure area, a group of young black tech students waited excitedly. They had heard Jamal would be on this flight and had come to express their gratitude. "You showed us how to fight injustice with dignity," one young woman told him, her eyes shining. "You made them respect us without becoming what they tried to make you." That, Jamal reflected as he greeted each student, was perhaps the most meaningful victory of all. What would you do if you faced discrimination like Jamal did? Has his story inspired you to stand up against injustice in your own life? Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts or experiences. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more powerful accounts of courage and transformation. Share this video with someone who needs to understand the impact of discrimination and the power of dignified resistance. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Remember that one person's refusal to accept injustice can create ripples that change entire systems. Jamal's journey teaches us that true change requires both individual courage and strategic action. When faced with discrimination, he didn't just react emotionally. He documented evidence, built alliances, and created a platform for systemic transformation. His story shows that dignity is the most powerful response to prejudice. By refusing to be defined by others' biases while maintaining his composure, Jamal turned humiliation into influence. We learn that accountability matters. Without exposure and consequences, discriminatory systems persist unchallenged. Most importantly, Jamal demonstrates that one person's stand can cascade into industry-wide reform when they choose to fight not just for personal vindication but for everyone facing similar injustice. His strategic use of evidence, media, and legal channels transformed a personal affront into a movement for equality that benefited countless others. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wondered how to respond effectively? What would you have done in Jamal's position? Comment below with your thoughts or share your own experiences standing up against injustice. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful accounts of courage and transformation. Share this video with someone who needs to understand how dignified resistance can create meaningful change. Thank you for being part of this community that believes in equality and justice. Together we can create a world where everyone is treated with the respect they deserve.